Hey, what's up guys? You're watching the Indiana Lacrosse Channel. I'm here with awesome coach Jamie Hasser, who's coached not only at the high school level, the college level, but also is now running youth programs here in central Indianapolis. Jamie, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, AJ. Really appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you from the area? Where did you start learning lacrosse?
Yeah, so actually born and raised in Indianapolis. I was in the North Central community, so I went to Eastwood Middle School, and that's kind of where I found lacrosse. My two older brothers, one was a freshman at North Central, one was a junior, and they kind of picked up the sport because a friend was playing it or something like that. They were throwing around in our living room, which I don't suggest to anybody. Parents might appreciate that. But as soon as I saw it, I think I begged my mother for a stick nonstop. And once I got one, it was just a dream come true. But the issue was there was no youth programs at that time. I think you had the Carmel's youth program, but you didn't have anything in our area. So I spent my 7th grade year hitting the wall, playing with my brothers, and trying to tag along with them and playing in backyard games and stuff like that. And after that, my 8th grade year came around, and they started a youth program for the Eastwood, West Lane, and Northview schools. So it all kind of combined into one there. And we didn't have anybody. We had like maybe 10 kids interested. So that was my start of recruiting. I started grabbing a kid from here, grabbing a kid from there. And before we knew it, we had about 16, 17 guys, and we were able to play. So that was kind of how I started playing the sport, and I mean it was instantaneous, the attraction to the sport. I mean, you had the speed, you had the shooting, you had the hitting, you had everything, and I'm the youngest of 6, so I was already a punching bag.
Right.
So it kind of turned out to be a great mix for me because you had great aspects of every sport I had played, and you kind of just formed them all into one. Played quarterback as in football, same kind of form, shooting, throwing, everything like that. You know, everything I did kind of flowed into it, so it was really the perfect storm for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing that I've seen a lot of kids. Or I guess the one comparison, you get a handful of baseball kids, and you're like, yeah, it's tough to throw like a baseball, but I think the motion is the motion that you want is like a quarterback throwing the ball.
Yeah,
I
square
think
your shoulders, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and making sure that, you know, your hips are turned and you're throwing across your body, not square and throwing a lot, you know. And so you see a lot of kids start off like that, and then once you get older, you start to see that shift. And after coaching for a couple of years, I think that's the analogy that I've been using. So
fluid hips.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
So you played at North Central then? That's what your high school looked like? And
yeah, so I went from middle school, 8th grade year playing there, and then I went to North Central where, I mean, I remember getting popped my first day of practice, laying on the ground and being like, maybe this isn't for me. And my brother kind of grabbed me by the coattails and said, we're going to keep doing this. So I got lucky. We had a good JV game one day, and the coach asked me to play varsity. So that was my first taste of varsity. It was my freshman year, and then from then on, I started getting a little bit better and better. I was captain junior, senior year as well, and my senior year, I actually led the state for like a couple of games. I was leading the state in points.
Wow. Nice.
And then teams kind of started noticing I had a lot of points on my team. So what happened? I started getting double teamed and stuff. So it was really, it was kind of a brutal senior year at times. But I mean, I still have guys on that team that I talk to who are just fantastic people. And Rick Johnston is actually the assistant athletic director there at Taylor University.
Oh, nice.
And he played with me.
Okay, cool.
Actually played with me. He played with me for 4 years there, and then he actually coached with me. While I was at Zionsville Middle School.
So, what was your process looking like? Obviously, you played at IU. What did that process look like? And tell me a little bit about that, because now IU is a fellow MCLA team, and that's what I played, and so it's nice to see another MCLA guy around.
Yeah, right.
Few and far between.
IU is great. Very humbling.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. You go from Indiana where the club programs just weren't as great as I thought they were. You know, you do pretty good. You're a solid overall player. And then you start playing with guys from Jersey, from Ohio, Illinois, who are just beyond talented. So I actually got cut.
Oh, wow.
Got cut. And I was heartbroken. I think I made a pretty stupid play in tryouts, and I think that stuck with one of the guys who were evaluating.
Oh, gotcha.
So that right there, I was like, God, what a dumb move. I got to make sure I'm better at this stuff. And I was offered an opportunity to join the practice team from Dan Woods, who was one of the captains at the time. Awesome guy who actually played for Duxbury in Massachusetts, which is an incredible program. So I did that. I think a few guys either quit or I did something right, but they asked me to join the team just prior to the season.
Oh, nice.
So I was pretty happy about that. I didn't have any expectations. I didn't think I was going to do anything, honestly. And I was a defensive midi. I'd been an attackman for 3 or 4 years.
And then make that jump straight to D-midi.
Go to D-midi, and it's like, oh, God, I'm in trouble. Lots of highs and lows that year, and it was a big learning experience because there were kids out there who you could tell they had worked on their craft twice as much as you. They wanted it more, but they also had the pedigree. They had somebody coaching them the right way throughout middle school, high school, whatever the start was for them. So that was a real eye opener. And then the following year, sophomore year, Matt Carwick is our head coach. Matt Carwick grew up in New York, played at Notre Dame, killed it, did really well there, and actually coached in England for a year and then came back to the States. He then coached the IU program. Okay. So he coached the IU program my sophomore year. I had actually fractured some cartilage in my foot, so it was the worst start to a sophomore year I could ask for. And I'm trying to impress a new coach. Terrible start, right? And so I finally get healed up, and January, right before the season starts, I slip on some ice.
Oh, my God.
And I bruised my entire back, my tailbone, everything, and I just couldn't run correctly for probably a majority of the season. So that took a long time to get back from, but Matt Carwick taught me so much. He kind of showed up, instilled confidence in the program, and basically would show up with a binder about that thick to practice.
Wow.
Plays, drills, man up, man down, etc. And I was like, wow, if I ever want to coach or be taken seriously, I need to be on top of this as much as this guy is. And so that was huge. And we ended up beating Illinois that year, who was pretty highly ranked, and we get into the top 25 in the U.S.
Nice.
So that was a huge, huge thing for us, and it was really, really great. And now I kind of look back. Matt then goes on to be like director of player personnel or something like that at Notre Dame. Does that for a few years. Now he's the head coach at Colgate.
Oh, wow.
So if you know anything about Colgate, they literally just beat Syracuse at Syracuse.
Yeah, that was that was crazy.
It's an insane feeling. So once again, the community is so small.
Yeah.
You have connections everywhere. And it was really, really great as a kid from Indiana to be connected to somebody from the East Coast who had talent, who had been there, who had done that, who had done great things. And he only coached me for 1 year. But I still stay in contact with him because when I was in the recruiting trail, I'd run into him at St. Paul's out in Maryland. I'd chat with him there and whatnot, and I'll send an email here and there. And after he beat Syracuse, I hit him up, and I was like, that was huge. Like, great job. So yeah, I'm very, very, very happy to be able to be connected to some of these people. But my goal, like I said earlier, I want to send some of these kids to college to go play, and the next time I get a good kid coming through my youth program that has the potential, I want to send them to Colgate.
Yeah.
You know,
I
want to keep these pipelines, those connections, right?
So it's all about the relationships. I mean, if I've learned anything from lacrosse, if I've learned anything about lacrosse, if I've learned anything just through the culture of this sport, is that the sport really isn't about the sport itself. It's about the relationships that are built with it, whether that be the coach-player relationships that I've seen happen, this mentorship that's fostered, whether it's a teammate to teammate, whatever. I've never seen a sport where relationships were one of the, if not the most important part of the sport.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll say, like, playing football, it's a little bit more direct. You're kind of telling, hey, go do this. You're done. We're gonna run blah 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 play. You better go hit that A gap, and that's it, or whatever. And it's kind of more of a command to a degree. In lacrosse, it's kind of, hey, on the next play, I need you to try and look for the, it's a little bit more fluid. You have to improvise a lot more.
Yeah.
And it's a game of mistakes. How do you react to the mistakes? How do you approach these players after they've made a mistake?
Right, yeah.
Because you're talking about, you're going to do 5 things good, you're going to do 25 mistakes during the game.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you at least constructively criticize or give them direction to a point where you're not going to want this kid to quit on you,
right,
and have a bad mentality?
And that's how, you get kids who are like that, who they throw, I can't tell you how many kids that I've coached that threw one bad pass. They've had a great practice, but they throw one bad pass, or they start off with line drills and they throw one bad pass and they slam their stick on the ground. That's, for us at Roncalli, that's a non-negotiable. No matter how how angry you get, don't throw your stick.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you throw a bad pass to your teammate, and the sorry, don't ever say sorry.
Yep.
You're not throwing a bad pass on purpose.
Yep.
It happens again. That's a really good quote. Is that it's not a game about, it's fluid. It is a game about mistakes.
Yeah. You literally have a jumping bean on the field.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to predict where it's going. You're not going to be able to do this. But we used to have drills at the PAW. Coach Haas had some really interesting approaches to things, and he used to call it like Schlep Rock, which was a character on some whatever it was, but it was like a downer person, right? So he'd have guys like, hey guys, we're going to throw a fit for 5 seconds, and we're going to blow a whistle. I want you to get you back into the right mentality. And he'd basically say something along the lines of, we're all going to get that mentality here or there, but it's about getting out of it as soon as possible and moving on to the next thing. And then another thing was saying my bad. If you said my bad, it was like 2 laps, 3 laps, or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was really something where you're trying to get the kids to appreciate that mistakes happen, but also what can I do to correct it as soon as possible. Right. Because, you might overthrow a pass, but are you sprinting after it afterwards? Because if you are, you might be able to make up for that mistake. But if you're down on yourself,
and you just like, oh my gosh, right, swing your stick, and then
you turn it over, and then you did nothing about it.
Right, and again, that's, as coaches, that's something that you see. That's something that affects your playing time.
Oh, 100%.
But I also do think that, going back to, we've all been there. We've all made that bad pass, and so when it happens, or when you see a younger guy happen to, I think that mentality from one guy to another guy, from a coach to a player, or for a player to player, I think that mentality of, hey, look, don't get down on yourself. We've all been there. We've all made that mistake. And I think, again, that's something that transcends just the sport, but I think that adds to the character of lacrosse and of that. And so I think that's really important. I think, and as I've talked to people, that's been a common trend and a common thread.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit of, you finished up at IU. What was your next step?
Yeah, so sophomore year ended, and I just didn't get a lot of playing time.
Yeah.
And that was my fault. I didn't know how good not only my class was, but the incoming class was. So, I was injured, but I wasn't nearly as talented as some of these guys. I mean, these people did things on the field that to this day I still haven't seen some people do. And so that was once again a huge humbling experience for me, knowing that, hey, you're still not nearly close to how good people are in this sport. That and I mean the injuries and whatnot. I think I had ankles of glass at the time, so I decided that I'd like to try and coach. So I rang up Bloomington South, and it was a a combination between Bloomington South and North.
Okay.
They made one team, just kind of like the way the middle school youth program was with me when I was younger. And I asked them, hey, what's the deal with coaching? They said they just hired some guy who had never coached before, never played before.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, you know what? This is a good chance for me to step in and at least try and direct this team. Kind of the way I said about, there are parents coaching, and it's admirable, but sometimes they just don't know the finite details.
Right.
So when I heard that, I asked if I could be a part of it. Had a bunch of extra time now that I was not playing lacrosse, and so I was there coaching basically when I was 21 and helping out the Bloomington team. And there were some really great, talented kids. Some of them actually went on to go play. Grant Jellison, sorry, is a kid that played for me there. Good kid, and now he played at Colorado State for a few years and did really well there. But I had a blast. That was the biggest thing, because I could take an offense and kind of simplify it and make it attainable for kids that were not super familiar with the sport, but could kind of do one or two simple things out there. And that was something that got me hooked to coaching, was that I loved the X's and O's, and I liked being able to put things in place so that kids could succeed. I can't do anything. I can't score a goal. I can't do crap out there. But I can make Billy put himself in the right position to make 50 goals this season. Yeah. Just as long as you put him in the right place. So that was great. They had a wonderful season that year. I think it's probably like 8-5, 8-4, which was great for them because I don't think they had a winning season prior to that. Had a couple all-state players, and it was great. It was really, really awesome. Loved it. And the following year, I was swamped with senior year duties, whatever it might have been. Yeah. Couldn't coach that year, and it kind of broke my heart a little bit. And then from there, in terms of coaching, I came back to Indy, got a gig doing this or that. I was working like night security here, doing this, doing that. And one of my old coaches, Connie Komarovsky, who actually is at A Better You Wellness. They do cryogenics. Okay. So he actually contacted me. He's like, listen, I need an offensive coordinator. Can you help us out? And it's like a 45-minute commute each day. And I would wake up from night security at like about 2 p.m. or something like that, drive my butt down, coach, come back, and then start the whole process over again. And it was fantastic. Connie gave me freedom to do what I wanted, run my offense, and I had great kids who really wanted to be better. That was kind of like an eye-opener. And that year we actually made the playoffs. We're the 8th seed, unfortunately lost to Chittard. But we had a gentleman, Brock and Austin, two of my attackmen. Brock led the state in goals that year. Austin led the state in assists that year. Wow. So I try to make really, really simplistic offenses that are a two-man game to a degree. So that was another thing that kind of nudged me in the right direction and said, whatever you're doing it's working. So that really made me pretty proud of myself. More proud about the guys though. Those guys worked their tail off and they deserved it. And I was really pushing for assistant coach of the year that year. But actually my IU teammate won assistant coach of the year that year. Charlie Berry. He won it while he was up at St. Joe's, I think. So I didn't even know that was a thing. Yeah, I didn't know either. They started talking to me about it. Well, now I have some motivation. There you go, right? So, no, I was really kind of pushing for that and whatnot, but really I was just happy that things were actually clicking. Yeah. So that was 2011, 2012, something like that. And the next year I couldn't coach. I was a little upset about that because my job just wouldn't I got myself like a 9 to 6 gig and just couldn't hit any practices. So what happened was I basically had 1 year off. I got into club coaching with Hoosier Lacrosse. Ken Levenberg runs that.
I feel like it's where a lot of guys get their start.
Yeah, and props to Ken.
Yeah, for sure.
Ken finds really good talent.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I really, you'll find his old coaches all throughout the state.
Yeah.
And did that, had a blast, really kind of fell in love with like the youth sport. It's one of those things where kids don't have any thought in their head outside of, I want to go play and have fun. And it's very refreshing. Some kids at the high school, college level take things so seriously that sometimes you're like, well, I hope you're enjoying this.
Right.
Because I can only see that you're dead set on this or that. So did that, had a great time. Those kids did really, really well. I think a lot of them played throughout high school and whatnot, which is another great thing to see. So that happened, and as I was doing a clinic, Ken called me and was like, hey, I need help on a defensive clinic. I was like, oh God, no. It's like, I don't know defense. Yeah. I might have played D-midi at IU, but I'm not saying I was good or learned anything. So anyway, we went ahead and I was coaching the clinic, and I don't know what I was doing right, but my kind of approach to everything when it's coaching is reps, more, quick, do things at game speed. Yeah. Period. I'm not here to mess around for the next hour or two. We're going to be dead set on getting better. Period. So that's kind of how I was approaching things. Carl Haas gave me an opportunity to kind of run X drill or that drill, and he started chatting with me a little bit after that. And he said something along the lines of, you know, DePaul is looking to start a program. Would you be interested? So I kind of juggled a little bit here and there and finally agreed. And that was my start with NCAA lacrosse. That was the biggest eye-opener I've ever had in my life. Yeah. The time commitment that you put into a sport when you're coaching at the collegiate level is it's unmatched. You're never going to find a 9 to 5 like that. You're going to love it, but you're also going to find yourself spending 80 hours a week on something. Not only if it's recruiting, video breakdown editing, setting up practice plans, making sure travel arrangements are correct. I mean, I'm glad I'm in logistics now because I was in logistics then. Yeah. You know, and it all kind of matches up, but that was something that was just a huge eye-opener. And not only the approach to the game, all that goes into it, but meeting people, making those connections. Yeah. The first year, once again, was rough. We didn't have a year recruit. Took about 14 total kids on the program at the end of the year. And good kids, great kids. We only had a couple of them stay till the next year. Like I said, we had about 20-something kids recruited for the next one. And had our first couple of wins that year, which is great. Getting that first win after a drought of about 16 months is huge. We beat Elmhurst something like 15-7, something like that. And it was probably one of the most gratifying wins I've ever had in my life. So that was a big part of kind of growing as a coach, is having that patience to take your lumps and then the next year kind of get through all of it. Yeah. The end of my career at DePaul, I had left, and I didn't know if I wanted to coach lacrosse after that. Oh, really? I had been going so hard for 2 years that I didn't know if it was really something that I needed to stay with because I didn't know if I could continue to succeed. And then at one point, I think I ended up seeing a position for Zionsville's high school program. I did the offensive coordinator, head coach, something like that. And I remember applying, and Danny Gray, who's the head coach there, chatted with me and said, we got a couple of positions. You can be JV head coach, you could be this, or you could be the 7/8 head coach. And I kind of like looked at it and I was like, the time commitment for these is 5 days a week. Youth, it'll be about 4. once again, I didn't want to like stress myself out too much, so I ended up taking the middle school program. And those kids, and I asked Danny before the season started, I was like, what am I going to expect out of these kids? What are we going to get out of them?
Yeah.
He's like, you know, they're not bad, they're okay. This kid's all right, this kid's all right. You know, you guys might have a couple losses here, whatever. So I didn't know. I had no clue. All these kids now are seniors and juniors at Zionsville right now. And yeah, we started practicing, and I saw some talent, some really, really good talent. Once again, I tried to simplify the offense as much as I could.
Right.
And the kids kind of all bought in. And that was huge.
That's huge, yeah.
Very, very huge.
Buying in is massive.
Yeah, and so we ended up doing really, really well. And the first game, though, I scheduled against like Carmel's top program. We just got destroyed. Yeah. Just absolutely. It was bad. It was like 13-4 or something, maybe. Yeah. And went through the season. They started clicking. They started getting better and better and better. And this kid, Jack Hillman, this kid, Reed Dodson, Kai Takasu, I could go down the list of all of them. But they were really talented. I mean, I thought we had the best midfield face-off guy, the best attackman, and I thought we had the best goalie in the state, and two of the best defenders. So I thought we were pretty good top to bottom. Went ahead and we played Carmel again in the state tournament in one of the playoffs, like semifinal, and at the youth level they didn't have enough time to do proper overtime. Okay. So they had to do Braveheart. Oh, wow. So we put Reed and Jack out there. Carmel gets the face, gets down the field, wide open shot, and Jack stuffs him. Oh, wow. Chucks it to our midfielder, Reed. Reed basically like hobbles down the field. He's so tired. Makes one little move and finishes, wins. And that was huge, really, really big. And then we have Westfield in the final. And it's actually my birthday. So I'm like, all right, I got one wish. Just let's try to have a good game. We play them. We're doing well. I lose track of the score. I thought it was 5-6. Fourth quarter's running down. Like 30 seconds left. They got the ball or something like that. And clock horn sounds. The refs are right. We're going to overtime. I'm like, oh God, we're still in this. So I kind of like wigged out a little bit. We went ahead, got the ball, called a timeout, and we did just a simple pick play. And Kai Takasu puts one low and puts it in the net. And we end up winning in overtime. And so that was us winning the state championship that year. And that was huge. Really, really, really big. And those kids are awesome. Any of those Zionsville high school kids watching this, like, awesome. One of the best years I've ever had in my life. And then from there, we coached another year. Didn't have the same success. Props to Westfield and Joe Bellflower. He has turned that into a factory of talent up there, and he's just a great, great guy. And you ever play any men's league games, you'll see Joe Bellflower because he's the guy who's just nonstop running through you, taking checks and going. He's a good guy. So anyway, did that, had a blast, and I decided to, once again, I was like, you know, I'll probably try and take a little break. My wife now was my fiance then, so I was kind of making sure that things were a little bit more squared away. Yeah, I get that. So we went ahead and we moved to a place off like 80th and Keystone in that area, which is pretty close to North Central. And I had been sitting around kind of thinking about the next step. Do I want to go be assistant? Do I want to go do this? And I got a call out of nowhere. I guess my resume was on Indeed from like 2012 or something. And I get a ring from a couple of the parents at North Central. And they're like, hey, we'd like to talk to you about being a head coach. So I met with them, and they had no clue I went to North Central. They had no clue about anything. And I just found it super serendipitous that I'm literally 2 minutes down the road. I loved the team. I loved the school. I'd love to help, and then they ended up calling me, basically about a month after I'd moved in. So that worked out great. I loved it. The program was a little beat up. Some of the kids needed either confidence or more coaching, and we ended up having a rough year. I think Ron Colley smoked us pretty good, and we ended up losing to people like Center Grove, something like 15-2 when we played them my first year there.
When was that?
That was not last season, but the season prior.
2016?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that was before I.
With Ron Colley.
Yeah, that was before I started in 17.
Yeah. So we didn't do all that well. The next year, last season, we did very well. I think the guys really bought in. Had a great season. We had a kid, Nick Highsmith.
Yep. I coached Nick at Hoosier.
Nick's a good kid.
Yeah, he's a good kid.
And he ended up having like 80-something points last season, and just did really, really well. I wish we would have done better, but we ended up playing Center Grove again. Okay. And we went into quadruple overtime last year.
Oh my gosh.
10-10. We ended up losing at the end. And, you know, you're not always upset when you lose when you're a coach.
Yeah.
Because I knew what happened this season before. And I know how long it takes to progress from one year to the next. But to go from 15-2 to almost beating them the very next year.
And quadruple overtime is...
That's a tie.
Quadruple overtime.
You hear that, Center Grove?
Just kidding. I mean, to be completely honest, we went into overtime with Center Grove last year too.
There you go.
So, I mean, going into overtime is, you never really see that very often. Like, it's very rare, but I mean, I think that's really interesting of how often it happens, but yet how rare it is as well.
Yeah, the momentum shift in lacrosse is different than any sport I know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
2 goals can make a route happen.
Right. Well, I mean, there was that one game, I want to say 2013, where Drexel, they made it to the what was it? The
playoffs.
Yeah, they made it to the playoffs and scored 3 in like under 5 seconds or something like that.
I remember that.
That was crazy.
Absolutely nuts. And I mean, it happens all the time like that.
Yeah.
You ever watch some of those East Coast high school games? I forget the name of the program, but they put in 5 in the last 2 minutes and won the state.
Wow.
And I mean, it's just how the game is.
Yeah.
It's such a
so
crazy momentum shift, and the fluidity of everything, the improvisation.
Yep.
It really, I just find it unmatched sometimes.
Yeah.
But no, it's been like a heck of a journey. Coaching at all those levels and kind of getting a taste of all the cultures and the mentalities that you run into, because not all coaches are the same, not all players are the same, and it varies from state to state. But you know, that passion's there regardless, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah, I love that. And like, I kind of going back to what you said, I love how lacrosse is very a team-oriented sport. Lacrosse is all about family. You see that a lot of themes of teams is that family, the camaraderie that you get, like we said, with the relationships. But then also at the same time, lacrosse is very individual-centric, or it's very customizable to your playing style, your school style, the state you're in, what region of the country you're in. I love the marriage between the two, between the team and the individual or whatever. And again, I think that's why the game is so fluid. You gotta improvise a lot. You can run so many schemes and
sprinkling in lacrosse here and there has been kind of my approach. And you know, you get to a point where you realize I need money to survive.
Right, exactly.
And so I ended up taking this gig, and I'd love to down the road be able to help fund the programs I work with. That way, when it comes to kids need sticks, kids need this, kids need gear, I'd love to be able to help and do that.
That's cool.
So that's really cool. One of the things that
and that's such a huge thing, and especially like again, like you were saying earlier with I hate it when you get a new kid and they walk up, oh coach, I got this brand new stick, and you immediately know that they got it from Dick's.
It's terrible,
and it's
or whatever
awful. And it's like, all right, well, you might as well go back to Dick's and buy a stringing kit, and we'll have someone string it up for you because this mesh is awful. I mean, I guess it's not the worst shaft or the head or whatever, but you're definitely going to need someone to string it, or even.
And you can't spend 30 minutes of your practice.
I can't string it for you, no. And then you get. I remember I had a freshman come up to me, go, Coach, what's wrong with my stick? Well, he had the starter D-pole, and he was waiting for a ride or something like that, and the stick got soaked, and now his pocket's like 8 feet deep, and he's throwing, and like, man, like I can't spend my warm-up time, or I can't spend teaching the new guys if I'm worrying about restringing your pocket, and I can't even restring the pocket without working on the sidewall because it's the sidewall that's the problem. I can only pull it up so much and do this, but the pocket's like, where are they getting this mesh?
Yeah.
To be completely honest,
that's huge.
If STX, I mean, I know they have their own line, or even Warrior has their own line, or Brime, whatever. If they could really just work with String King East Coast Eyes of, hey, here's our pre-strung with East Coast stuff that you don't have to worry about it. You pick it up and you can play. I mean, and what even drives me up the wall even more is the girls' starter sticks. The girls' starter sticks are atrocious. At least you can work with guys' sticks. Yeah. And maybe because I'm new to the girls' game, but you cannot work with leathers that are sometimes just straight.
Now they've created a couple of sticks now for the girls' game, and you'll probably think I'm like a marketer for them, but String King does such a good job.
Yes, with their complete stick.
They do complete sticks, and those are the ones I remember buying one 2.5, 3 years ago, and I fell in love with it. I love that stick, and I just like had to continue to use this kind of stick because I don't want to spend time
redoing it,
screwing with the stick, and now you can't throw with it. With those sticks, you basically have to alter the shooting string just a little bit, and those are the easiest things to fix. So
I mean, I got my stick when I was at Taylor we had a sponsorship with Warrior. Which, when you say sponsorship, it's not like we were getting free gear, but you get. I remember getting the Rabel 1 and the Rabel 2 for $25.
That's great.
Shafts for 10 to 15. I mean, I'm still rocking gear that I bought my freshman year.
There you go. Oh yeah.
But I remember getting my first pack of String King mesh. And that was when String King was fairly new. I had bought some East Coast, but that was wax mesh, and wax mesh deteriorates over time. And at Taylor, I was going through Warrior hard mesh, and I remember you get through about the first half of the season because we were at Taylor and we got mud fields, and so I spent most of my time washing it. And then you get through about the first quarter of the season, and the sidewall rips. You're like, crap. Well, now I got to do the whole thing all over again, re-break in my stick, That was the worst. And then I remember getting String King, and it was already broken in. The pocket that I wanted. I have not, this is going to sound awful, but I have not really adjusted my sidewall in probably 4 years.
Good.
About 4 or 5 years.
Oh, that's actually a good thing.
That is a good thing, but for me, like because I was a stringer, I was the team stringer. But now it's like I'll have to go back and totally redo that, and I'm more worried about my head breaking before worrying about restringing my stick, which is a crazy thing to think about.
Oh, yeah.
And so I kind of loathe the day where I have to go back and restring my stick or fix it or go back and buy a new head because, one, I don't think they make the King 3 anymore.
Right.
So I got to either get that off a sideline swap or something if I want the same stick. For me, a shaft's a shaft, and it's not that big of a difference.
They're going to break at some point.
They're going to break at some point. Get over it. And the head really was what made it, and I love the King 3. I love the Rabel 2. But that mesh, that String King is, again, amazing. And
I try to tell a lot of... Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
I try to tell a lot of my the parents at the youth level, it'll be worth it to buy a complete stick. One, it's already set up. It's not super expensive anymore. It's like $100 for complete sticks, and you end up being able to find a kid who's not going to get frustrated in the long run.
And that's a huge thing, and that's why I think it deters so many new kids. Is that they get that. And
that's exactly what Joel White said the other day.
You're paying $40 for a complete stick of Dick's Sporting Goods that's going to be crappy and cause your kid, you know, that might be a waste of $40 for the stick
and
plus the time and the gear, right? So your kid buys let's say the Dick's Sporting Goods starter pack for $60, okay? Or you could pay maybe $120, go get pads from Play It Again Sports, but get a good stick.
That might last you a few years.
And that stick will last you a long time. Those pads will last you a few years, but you can upgrade those pads as you go. But that stick, you know, you have a kid who treats it right, who protects his stick well.
Yep.
It's not going to get blown up by D-poles, or even if you're at the youth level, you know, I don't know what is it, U10 where they start playing with the D-pole?
I think it's U12 now.
U12, okay. Yep. So, I mean, even then, you know, as the kid grows, and if they're playing young, then they're not worrying about, but that $100 stick could last you a while. Or what they could do is get a cheap shaft, and then go for the head and mesh, because that's what really matters, like we were saying, you know.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, you're going to save yourself a ton of time, a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate that. Sideline swap, like you mentioned earlier, is a good way to find cheap gear. If you need quick gloves or whatever, that's a great one. Another thing is that you really want to try and get this stuff early and test it out. I mean, you get kids who it's the first day of practice, they've never thrown with it, and now they get frustrated because they just don't.
Because they can't, yeah.
Exactly.
So get it, throw with it a little bit, try to figure it out. And
yeah, I mean, that's really one of the biggest parts. And then a quick note to any youth programs that want to get better or get free gear, try to reach out to Indiana Sports Corp.
Okay.
So every single year they do a gear giveaway.
Okay.
And they have a litany of sports, right, from football, tennis, basketball, et cetera, all of them, and even lacrosse. But in Indiana, lacrosse is kind of...
It's a novelty.
It's a novelty. It's an outlier sport to a degree. And so when we reached out to them, we reached out to them 2 years ago because my assistant coach, Kevin Albert, was working for the Pacers. And everything with Indiana Sports Corp that they were doing the gear giveaway was based in Bankers Life.
Oh, nice.
In that main area right there in the front. And so he called me and he said, hey, they've got pallets of this stuff sitting around, and we need this stuff.
Yeah.
Can we do anything about it? We called them that day. Here's our nonprofit, whatever.
Here's our 501c3.
All those things. Sent it to them, and I think we got the green light that day.
Wow.
I called work. I told them, hey, I got to leave a couple hours early. Called every single parent there. We grabbed 5 pallets of gear. Wow. You're talking about hundreds of gloves, hundreds of shoulder pads, everything. North Central has a stockpile of this stuff that we've given to as many youth kids that want it, we give it to them. But we were the only people that going after this gear.
Wow.
Everybody wanted the football, everybody wanted, and as it is, those sports are big.
Right.
But here in Indiana, nobody even knew about it. And so our youth program went and did it again this year. Yeah. And they got some stuff through that as well. And I think we got like a bucket of balls, and we got this, we got that. And if you've ever bought balls before, you're talking about $300 a case.
Yeah.
If not more.
It's absolutely, and then by the time the season's over, they're all gone.
Oh, yeah. So if you don't want to go ahead and waste however much money, a couple $100 up to $1,000 in balls a year, reach out to these people. Yeah. And I mean, that's one of my biggest things was that we didn't have a ton of money, but we got to make something out of it. And so when we heard about that, we've jumped on it, and we're going to continually do it every single year. But I think there are other programs out there that want to. Greenwood with Alonzo, he wants to do that and start his program there.
Okay, I didn't know Greenwood was looking at starting a program.
Exactly, they're starting a youth program this year, and I mean it's all over the U.S. But the thing is, are we looking to go ahead and get that moving?
So what does that look like? What's that experience been like, or what are you looking forward to building in youth lacrosse inside 465?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, this is actually the same program I started with.
Oh,
so
that's
when
incredible.
I was in the 8th grade, I played for this. They call it Northside now. We just called it like the NC feeder program or whatever it was. And so it's kind of came full circle. I'm back to the same program, and it really, it's really kind of been stagnant to a degree on the north side. I've wanted it to grow and everything, but you know, numbers haven't risen to the degree we really wanted.
Right.
So you kind of go back into your college recruiting days when I coached at DePaul. You need to go find talent. You need to go find kids. You need to get kids interested in it. So I had my goalie at North Central, Kevin Smith, who's still playing. He's a junior there. He created a call-out video. And he basically took the ETD Greg hype video and put a little come out for lacrosse this year. Here's the contact information. And he did that, and that was our first thing, is reaching out to all those schools and saying, hey guys, lacrosse is here. This is kind of a sample of what it's like. We'd like to continue to grow it. Let us know if you want to join. So we had a lot of kids come out who, once again, never played the sport.
And where did you put that video?
We sent it to all the schools. Oh,
you sent it so the schools would play it?
All of them.
Oh, okay.
And so I actually knew a bunch of the teachers from when I went to school.
Oh, okay.
But also some of the people who are teachers now went to school with me.
Okay. Yeah.
So there are people left and right that you know that you want to try and work with. Another thing is you try to put on free clinics. That's a big thing. You need to grab as much equipment as you can, put on some kind of clinics, send flyers. I mean, you're basically trying to create your own marketing firm when you're pushing this stuff. And so building at the youth level is tough, but it's also something that I know for a fact takes a ton of hard work. It's just like building a program at the NCAA level, but you need to make sure that, one, you're doing it the right way, you're doing it in a way that's inclusive, as well as it's something the kids look forward to doing. That's a huge thing, because you can shout drills, you can yell at kids all day, but do they want to come back?
Right.
Right. So the youth level and growing it in that area has been challenging, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who didn't win for 16 months. I've got patience. You know, I'll take my lumps for a year or however long it takes until we not only have the right coaching in place, but we have the right kids that want to do the right things in place. And that's a big thing, because you need at least 10 kids to buy in. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And it sounds weird, but that's about the right number. Yeah. Because you kind of have kids that want to play this, want to play that, do this, do that. But if you get 10 kids that really want to buy in, then you can find yourself a good mentality within that program. Yeah. And that's kind of where it all starts. You need to kind of breed that mentality. And that's really the first step, is getting the kids to buy in, and then it's an avalanche, really. That's awesome. Yeah.
How does Indiana grow in lacrosse, right? So you've been at all aspects, right? You've been a kid growing up here in Indy. You've coached college, you've coached high school, you've done it, you're running a youth program. What do we need to do as a community? Excuse me. What do we need to do as a community to grow the sport?
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about let's inject steroids in Indiana and go, we got to get it state sanctioned. Yeah. That's the first thing. And I'll be frank, the growth of our sport is not there in the state yet. Yeah. You're telling me that Illinois, Ohio, and Michigan are all state sanctioned, and they're doing incredible. Yeah. Not only incredible, they're producing high caliber athletes. Yeah. That go and play at the highest level. And so what you have to do is you need to get a certain percentage of your schools in your state to be playing the sport in order to be at state sanction. Right. So it's something like 30-something%, maybe more. So that means however many schools we have in Indiana, 400, 300 high schools, wherever it is, we need to get 30% of that. Right. So you're talking about 100-something plus schools. Right. We're at 60-something. We were at 40-something when I was playing. Okay. So you're telling me that 15 years has passed and we've only maybe had about 4 schools a year. You're talking about another 10, 15, 20 years.
Before we really get to that point.
Before we even get close. Yeah. Now, what you can do is you could try to argue that it shouldn't be this percentage. It should be more, let's hit a mark of 80 schools. Let's hit a mark of 90 schools and then go from there.
Yeah.
Once again, it's got to be accessible.
Right.
It's got to be accessible. It's got to be affordable.
Mm-hmm.
When you're telling us that we have to spend $5,000 a year on transportation costs and buses and stuff like that, we got to buy our own jerseys. We got to buy our own. Now, your stick is your stick. You probably got to buy that. That's fine. But other things like that, we put an initiative out to buy helmets for all our kids at North Central.
Okay.
So we got helmets for all those kids. We got gear, like we said earlier. So we've done everything we can. The club cost, paying for refs, coaches, and then transportation costs, that's what really kills it. Because I probably had 30 or 40 kids come out to some of those clinics. But how many can stay with once you tell them there's a price tag of $350?
Right.
Not a lot can hang.
Right.
And so that's one thing that really hurts it, is that you don't have a lot of kids, especially in the inner city, that can afford it.
Yeah.
But are these kids more than capable of being varsity athletes? 100%.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
100%. So getting the state to a point where we can become state sanctioned is a huge, huge part of it. And I mean, I've written letters. I've done a lot of things to try and push for this. And, you know, it's one of those things that is going to be an uphill battle for us.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I think that the IHSAA needs to look at Illinois, Michigan, and Ohio and see what good it's done. You're talking about providing 40-plus kids at each school an opportunity to do something in the spring. Not only that, but, hey, go get yourself a scholarship with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Go do this, go do that. I mean, it really is it's a unique sport. It's tough to get into. Yeah. And that's the issue. Yeah. You just need to make it accessible. So really trying to get to a point where the IHSA understands what we're doing, but also understands that globally this is the fastest growing sport in the world. Yeah. Jump on. Get on the train. Yeah. Now, we're not going to stop. It's going to keep growing around Indiana. And if you really want to, we're going to be 20 years behind the curve. Right, and we will be fighting an uphill battle. Even when we are a sanctioned sport, we will be competing against Illinois, Michigan, Kentucky. I mean, we'll be facing all of these other for those scholarships. So really, if we want our kids to have the best opportunities, right? So I mean, if you're looking even as an academic point of view, why don't we get those? Why don't we make it a varsity sport so that we aren't competing when all of these colleges are offering, right? You said, you know, 1 in 10, 1 in 8 kids are getting scholarships to go play. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we providing this opportunity so that these kids have now that opportunity to get some money to go to college? Because the chances for them to do that are greater than any other sport. Oh yeah. And I mean, if you look at, I mean, if this is going to sound bad, but if you want your kids to succeed, if you want your kids to go to college, right? If you're a program that says we want as many Indiana athletes to get scholarships so that they can better their education through being student athletes, then why not add the sport that gives them the opportunity to have those opportunities? 100%. And there are schools here in town that are becoming school sanctioned. So that means they're booking the bill for the transportation costs and the refs and stuff like that. And I applaud those schools. That is 100% where it needs to be. If the state's not going to give it to us, let's put it on the schools to go ahead and push for that. And I know some schools that aren't doing that. Yeah. And once again, I don't know any athletic director who, if you told them, hey, we've got this sport here, this school, this school, this school, they're doing great, they're sending kids to go play, do you want to be on the same page and compete with them? Or do you want to, once again, be behind the ball 5 years, 10 years down the road? Be able to say, hey, look, we have these players. I mean, that was one of the big things that when we pushed for Taylor to be a varsity program, that we really struggled with, because Taylor has a very niche market of Christian athletics. Yeah. And in the area, in the Indiana area, there was a lot of athletes. I mean, you can talk about, if you want kids who wanted that faith-based student academic life, right, from Cathedral, from
Chittard, you know, like Ron College, or all these other different, you know, Heritage Christian, all these Christian schools. Well, the nearest one that had like varsity lacrosse was like Asbury.
Right.
And so now we're getting kids out of state, or now we're sending our kids out of state. When we were trying to push Taylor, like, hey, we're an in-sport, we could have had, I mean, I remember the guys who started it saying, we could have had 30 years up on all these other schools, you know.
It's very possible.
And that's just more money that the school is trying, you know, would be bringing in.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, better late than never. Taylor's still, I would say, above the curve with a lot of any other NAIA sports, at least in like Taylor's conference. I mean, you look at Marion, you look at those other schools. I mean, they are ahead of the curve on that. So I think that, to be completely honest, it is a no-brainer. But like you said, there's a huge financial toll. So how do you make lacrosse more financially obtainable for schools to?
Yeah, you know, that's one of those big questions.
Yeah.
Right. Where do you get the funding? Where do you get this? Where do you get that? You know, the IHSAA has found ways to provide money for all the sports.
Yeah.
And I mean, I try to think of it as a way that if you want the overall growth of your athletics to continue in a positive direction, you need to start being willing to be open to new sports. Now, you have rugby, you have lacrosse, you have ultimate frisbee, you have all these club sports that kind of people brush off to a degree.
Yeah.
But dig deeper. Dig a little bit deeper. And I'm not going to knock on those club sports because I think they're great. Rugby is such a huge international following.
Yeah.
Whereas in the U.S., right?
Right.
But dig deeper. Look into lacrosse. Check the stats. You're going to find that not only is the exponential growth wild, but it's going in the best direction possible. And I think that that's really where you'll find the truth, and that you'll know that everything is going to be definitely going in the right direction.
Yeah. Hey man, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to watch what you're doing with the youth program, and coming together and being able to work together to grow the sport here in Indiana. I mean, I really think that we can spearhead this and really bring it to what it needs to be.
100%.
So thanks guys for tuning in. If you guys like the video, make sure you comment and subscribe. Comment also down below if there's any kind of video you want to see. And until next time.